A soft light poured through the curtains as Mara sat at her desk, staring at the empty chair across from her. She traced the grain of the wood with her finger, as if it could tell her where her sister had gone. Alina had moved 3 months ago, to a distant city, chasing a scholarship that felt as far away as another world. Every morning, Mara woke with a hollow ache, a quiet loneliness that pulsed through her chest. Mara closed her eyes and pictured Elena's bright smile. She remembered the way her sister laughed at terrible jokes, the way her voice filled their small apartment like sunshine. The rooms felt too big and too silent. Mara swallowed back a sigh. She wanted to call Alina, to ask her to come home. For just one day, but she feared the awkward pause that always drifted across the line. They had tried video chats twice, but the screen froze both times to frozen smiles that turned into 2 frozen frowns. After that, Alina stopped answering. A pile of unread messages sat in Mara's inbox, each one a tiny monument to her growing fear. Had Alina grown tired of home? Did she feel trapped by memories Mara could not reach across thousands of miles? The questions crowded her mind, and still she could not bring herself to write another note. Mara stood and walked to the window. Below, the city moved without her. People on footpaths, cars sliding through red lights, birds wheeling against. The sky. The world spun in its familiar rhythm, as if nothing had changed. But for Mara, everything was different. She felt lost inside her own life, like a world that had lost its center. She turned away from the window and pressed her palms to her forehead. Her heart pounded with a simple wish: to speak to Alina again, to feel connected. She breathed in, slowly, as if each breath could fill the empty space between her and her sister. There has to be a way, she whispered to the silent room. Mara returned to her desk and spread out a clean sheet of paper. She dipped a pen into blue ink and hesitated. The tip hovered just above the page. Even writing felt strange now. Carefully, she wrote, "Dear Alina, I miss you more than I can say. I hope you are well. I want to hear your voice again. Please write back." She folded the letter, sealed it in an envelope, and placed it on the small table by the door. It would ride the mail trucks across highways, trains through mountains, finally arriving where Alina lived. The thought gave Mara a small spark of hope. Over the next days, Mara filled her moments with small tasks. She baked loaves of bread shaped like hearts, remembering how Alina loved to snack on warm slices. She took photographs of her favorite park bench, the place where they used to talk for hours. Each night she packed a photo and a slice of bread into the mailer, hoping Alina would feel a piece of home in her hands. Even as she worked, doubt crept behind her thoughts. What if Alina had forgotten her? What if the new city was too busy, too full of new friends for her letters to matter? Mara shook her head. She refused to let her fear grow stronger than her love. Humanity was resilient. People could cross oceans, build bridges, and send messages into space. If she could trust rockets to carry explorers to the stars, she could trust a simple envelope to carry her heart. One evening, a notification pinged. On her phone, with a trembling finger, Mara unlocked it and saw a new message in her inbox. Sender's name was unfamiliar, a postal service app confirming delivery of a package. Her letter and photos had reached Elena's address. Her heart soared higher than any rocket launch. Mara closed her eyes and let a tear slip down her cheek. The world felt suddenly wide and bright again. She typed a short reply to the notification. "Thank you." It felt enough for now. That night, Mara dreamed she saw Alina walking toward her across a field of golden grass. Elena's arms were open, and Mara ran into them, laughing with relief. She woke with the sunrise, a warm glow in her chest. She knew that hope was the first step toward reconnection. For days afterward, Mara checked her phone for any sign of Elena's reply. She kept baking bread in heart shapes and taking photos of the park bench. She told herself that every day she showed up, she honored their bond. Every letter sent, every loaf baked, was proof that she believed in their connection. Humanity was defined by small acts of kindness and the refusal to give up on one another. Mara understood that now more than ever. Even if the world felt distant and cold, she could reach out with simple words. she could remind someone that they were loved. On the 7th day after delivery, Mara's phone buzzed again. Her heart pounded as she opened the message. It was from Elena. The words were short but full of warmth. "I got your letter. I miss you too. Let's video chat this weekend." Mara smiled so big her cheeks hurt. She typed back, "I can't wait." Mara sat back and closed her eyes. The chair across from her felt less lonely already. Hope glowed inside her like the first spark of a new dawn. No matter how far someone might travel, the quiet strength of caring could bridge any distance. And in that strength, humanity found its greatest power. The morning sun slipped through Mara's curtains as she awoke with the memory of Elena's message still fresh in her mind. "Let's video chat this weekend," it had said. Mara smiled, but her chest tightened with nerves. It had been 3 weeks since she sent the letter and photos. Now the chance to see Elena's face again felt like both a gift and a test. Did not know if she could speak without trembling. All day, she moved through her work in a quiet dream. At the bakery where she shaped dough into heart loaves, her hands shook. She mixed flour and water and yeast as if each knead could smooth away her doubt. Whenever a customer smiled, she managed a small reply, but inside, she wondered what Elena would say when they connected. Would her sister still sound the same? Would the distance have changed them both too much? That evening, Mara set up her laptop on the kitchen table. She cleared away crumbs, adjusted the screen so the light would fall gently on her face, and practiced a simple greeting in front of a mirror. "Hi, Elena. I'm so happy to see you." She said it over and over, until the words felt natural on her lips. Still, when she logged into the video app, her heart pounded like a drum. The screen flickered, and for a moment the image was blurred. Then Elena appeared, framed by tall windows in her new apartment. Her hair was pulled back, and she looked tired, but her eyes shone the same bright blue Mara remembered. Elena waved, and Mara felt tears spring to her eyes. She waved back, voice catching in her throat. "I missed you so much," Mara said. She swallowed a sob. Elena's face softened. "I missed you too," Elena replied, voice gentle. The screen cracked as her connection wavered, but the warmth came through anyway. "I'm sorry I've been slow to write." Mara forced herself to nod. "I understand. You're busy with school." She cleared her throat. "But I wanted to see you. It matters to me." They talked about small things. First, Mara's bread baking, Elena's new classes. Each sentence felt like a fragile bridge stretching across miles. When they laughed, Mara felt the ache in her chest ease. Elena told a story about making a friend in her dorm. Mara felt proud that her sister was finding happiness. But then Elena hesitated. The screen froze for a few seconds. When she spoke again, her smile was timid. "I worry I'm not home anymore," she said softly. "I worry I've changed too much." Mara's heart grew warm with hope. Here was the moment she had longed for, an honest confession. She leaned forward. "Elena, you can't change in the wrong way. You grew brave enough to chase your dreams. You're still you." She searched Elena's eyes. "I want to share in your new life, if you will let me." Elena's face brightened. "I want that too." They spent the next hour sharing memories and future plans. They spoke of visiting each other, of cooking together over the screen, of watching the same movie even when oceans apart. Each idea felt like a small victory. When the call ended, Mara sat still, staring at the blank screen. Her shoulders felt lighter than they had in months. She closed her eyes and let tears fall, tears of relief, of joy, of the simple power of caring. She stood and walked to the door, where a new envelope waited. Inside were photos of Elena pinned to fabric swatches for a quilt Mara planned to make. She smiled as she tapped out a message. "I will start your quilt today. I can't wait to show you." The next days passed in a blur of happy work. Mara sewed squares of fabric with patterns that Elena would love: bright florals, soft blues, warm oranges. With each stitch, she whispered memories and hopes into the quilt, the time they danced in the kitchen, the morning they watched the sunrise, the day they promised to be there for each other no matter what. Humanity's strength lived in these small acts of stitch, a call, a shared moment. One afternoon, a knock came at the door. Mara opened it to find a small parcel from Alina. Inside was a delicate keychain shaped like a paper airplane and a note. For when you visit me, I can't wait. Mara held the keychain in her palm, fingers tracing its smooth metal. She pressed it to her heart and whispered, "Soon." That night, Mara set the quilt on her bed, laying each square across. The smooth surface. She imagined Elena's face when she saw it for the first time. She imagined wrapping her sister in its warmth and feeling the distance shrink to nothing. Sleep came easily, wrapped in hope. The morning brought a new message from Alina. "Thank you. I love it already. You remind me what home means." Mara read it twice, then stepped outside into the bright day. The air felt full of promise. She closed her eyes and The afternoon sunlight spilled across Mara's kitchen table as she stared at the video chat window again. Elena's empty chair looked back at her through the dark screen. Their last call had brought relief, but weeks had passed without another. Mara felt the old ache return, loneliness mixed with worry. She loved her sister deeply, and she knew Alina was busy with studies and new friends. Still, Mara wondered whether she had reached too far, whether her letters and calls were too much, or too little. She did not know how to bridge the distance again. Mara closed her eyes and remembered the way Elena's eyes lit up when she spoke of home. She pictured the quilt draped across the bed, each square a memory stitched with care. That quilt had reminded Alina of family, and it reminded Mara that simple acts could carry love across any miles. She took a deep breath. If she could send letters and crafts, maybe she could send something more herself, in person. The idea grew quietly in her mind. Mara pictured boarding a train, the landscape shifting beyond the window as she traveled. Closer and closer to Alina, she imagined the moment she would step onto the platform and see her sister's face again. Her heart thundered at the thought, both with hope and fear. Could she really do it? Over the next days, Mara began to plan. She opened her laptop and researched travel options. Buses were cheaper but slow. Shared ride would be faster but costly. She read blogs from travelers who described lonely nights in hostels and the kindness of strangers offering a spare room. Each story reminded her that humanity was full of people willing to help one another, even when they hardly knew each other. Mara felt inspired by those tales. If strangers could show compassion, surely she could find allies on her journey. She messaged a friend named Ravi, who once traveled for work. "I'm thinking about visiting Alina," she wrote. "You know the best way to get there?" He replied quickly with routes and tips for safe, low-cost travel, even offered to drive part of the way and keep her company. Mara's chest filled with warmth. She realized she did not have to face this alone. Next, she messaged Alina. She wrote, "I have plans to see you soon. I don't know if it's possible yet, but I want to try. I miss you more than ever." She hesitated before hitting send. What if Alina thought she was rushing or imposing? But she needed to show her sister that their bond mattered enough to cross any distance. That evening, Mara sat on her porch, watching streetlights flicker on. She imagined Alina reading the message in her dorm room, smiling at the thought of her sister's visit. The world felt full of possibilities, tiny lights shining through darkness. Even if something went wrong, at least she had tried. A few days later, Alina responded, "I can't promise anything yet, but I would love to see you. Let me check my schedule in my room. I'll tell you soon." Mara exhaled, a rush of relief filling her lungs. She spent the next hours drafting a rough itinerary, bus times, lodging options, shared rides. She penciled in extra days off work, hoping her boss would understand. Each detail she added felt like another plank in the bridge she was building to her sister. Finally, the weekend arrived when everything seemed set. Mara packed a small bag, comfortable clothes, the quilt folded carefully, and a bundle of fresh-baked cookies. She placed a printed photo of her and Alina as children, kites in hand, inside her wallet. A reminder of why she was traveling. Her heart beat fast as she shut the door behind her and stepped into the cool morning air. On the bus, Mara watched the world go by, fields turning to towns, small villages perched by rivers, clusters of lights where people laughed and lived. She remembered the stories of travelers who found friendship in roadside cafes and shared meals with strangers. She decided she would greet every person with a smile, hoping that human kindness would guide her journey. Midway through the trip, the bus stopped at a small station. As Mara stretched her legs, a woman at the next bench smiled and asked if Mara needed directions. When Mara explained her destination, the woman said she had a cousin in that city and could help with a local map. She even offered to order a rideshare once Mara arrived. Again, Mara felt the gentle power of caring strangers reaching out, weaving a network of support. The final leg of the journey passed in a blur of excitement and nerves. Mara's pocket buzzed with a message from Alina. "I'm waiting for you at the station with a sign that says Mara. Can't wait." Mara's smile was so wide her cheeks ached. She folded the quilt and held it against her heart. No matter how far they traveled apart, their love could follow her like a faithful companion. When the bus finally pulled into the city terminal, Mara climbed down and scanned the crowd. She saw her sister holding a white sign with her name in bold letters. Elena's eyes shone with unshed tears, and she waved as if she would never let go. Mara ran forward, and they collided in a joyful embrace that erased miles and months in an instant. They walked through the station hand in hand, speaking softly, as if they were learning each other anew. Elena's voice sounded like home. Mara knew that this journey had been more than a visit. It had been a testament to what humanity could do. Reach out, support one another across borders and fears, and bring hope to the darkest parts of the heart. Later that day, they settled into a small cafe near Alina's dorm. Laughter echoing in stories, laughter echoing in the warm room. Outside, the city buzzed with life. Inside, two sisters sat close, proof that distance could not defeat hope or the quiet strength of caring. And as Mara looked at Elena's bright smile, she felt certain that no matter what storms might come, they would face them together. Morning light warmed Mara's room as she packed her suitcase. Yesterday's visit with Alina still shone in her. Mindalona's laugh, the way they held hands on the train platform, the shared cookies in that quiet cafe. Yet now, Mara felt the old ache return. She closed her eyes and let out a soft sigh. The miles between them stretched out again, and she worried the closeness would fade as quickly as it came. At the airport, Mara hugged Alina tight. "I'll right soon," Alina promised, her voice thick with emotion. Mara nodded, forcing a smile. She did not want to cry in public. The gate loomed ahead, and Alina waved until Mara disappeared behind the glass. Mara pressed her hand to her heart, then stepped forward, determined not to let that distance claim her hope. On the plane, Mara stared at the city lights disappearing below. Memories of laughter mingled with new worries. Would Alina forget the warmth of the quilt? Would their calls falter like before? But Mara also remembered how letters had carried her words and how strangers had offered kindness on her journey. Humanity's strength lived in small acts. She knew that. She decided to create a new tradition that could bridge any distance. A sister's box filled with tokens of home. The idea felt bright in her mind. At home, she unpacked her bag and spread a blank wooden box on her desk. She found paints and brushes and decorated the lid with their favorite wildflowers: bluebells, daisies, and marigolds. Each petal reminded her of Elena's favorite colors. She painted the words for Alina on the side, and she could almost hear her sister's delighted gasp when it arrived. Over the next days, Mara filled the box with small gifts. She folded a note into a paper boat and wrote, "May this carry my love to you." She lined the bottom with lavender from the garden, remembering how its scent had calmed them as children. She tucked in a bar of chocolate handmade by her bakery, a tiny jar of honey from a friend's bees, and a photograph of the park bench where they once talked for hours. Each item carried a story, a memory, and a promise. When the box was full, Mara sealed it carefully and addressed it to Elena's dorm. She imagined Elena opening it, breathing in the lavender, reading every word. The thought made her chest glow. She knew the box could not replace her presence, but it could remind Alina that home waited, always ready to welcome her back. And it reminded Mara that she could reach across any miles with kindness and creativity. A few days later, Mara received a message. My box arrived. I love every part. Photos showed Alina cradling the painted lid, her eyes shining. Alina wrote that the scents and flavors reminded her of home and gave her strength on long study nights. Mara read the messages over and over, her heart full of warmth. She realized that even small gestures could become lifelines of connection. Inspired by Elena's joy, Mara wrote back, "Let's make this a tradition. Every season, a new box." She sketched ideas for spring blossoms, summer seashells, autumn leaves, and winter candles. Elena agreed, suggesting each box could include a playlist of songs they both loved. Together, they planned the first seasonal box to celebrate autumn brown leaves. Cinnamon Sticks, a poem by their favorite poet. That evening, Mara sat by her window and watched the sky turn pink and gold. She thought about how easy it would have been to let distance win, to wait for Alina to reach out. But instead, she chose to act, to create moments of home and hope. Humanity's best power, she believed, was the will to care, to find new ways to show love, even when miles stood between. Hearts. As she closed her journal, Mara felt a strong sense of peace. The ache of distance remained, but it was softened by purpose. She would paint, write, bake, and send each box with the same care she had carried across that train ride. Each gesture was a proof of her quiet strength, of how far one person's hope and kindness could travel. And in that truth, she held the promise. Mara woke before dawn, her heart tight with worry. The autumn box had arrived late at Elena's dorm, and Mara had not heard from her sister in days. The painted lid still sat on her desk, bright with daisies and marigolds. But it felt heavy now, a reminder of the distance Mara could not close. She loved Alina more than words could say, yet she did not know how to bridge the growing silence. She poured herself a cup of tea and sat by the window. Outside, gray clouds rolled over the hills, and a timid wind rattled the branches. Mara wrapped her shawl tighter and thought of Alina studying far away, buried under books and deadlines. She remembered how the last video call had ended with apologies and rushed goodbyes. Both sisters had wanted more time, but neither knew how to ask. Mara took a deep breath. She wanted to reach out to mend the gap, but fear held her back. If Alina was too busy, what if the boxes and calls felt like demands? The questions spun in her mind until she felt exhausted, as if worry itself weighed 100 pounds. Then a spark of hope flickered. She remembered how she had asked strangers for help on her journey to visit Alina. She remembered how small acts of kindness, like a shared map or a smile, had guided her home. If she could trust others to reach out, she could trust herself. To try again, Mara opened her laptop and drafted a new message to Alina. She typed slowly, choosing simple words that carried all her love. "Dear Alina, I think of you every day. I miss our talks and your laughter. I hope your autumn box brought you some comfort. I would love to hear your voice again, even if it is just for a few minutes. Please tell me a time that works for you. I am here and I care." She stared at the screen, heart pounding. Then she pressed send. Immediately, Mara felt both relief and fear. She watched the sent icon blink and wondered if she had sounded too needy. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I did my best." The next afternoon, a reply arrived. Elena's words were short but warm. "Thank you for your letter and the box. I'm sorry for the silence. Studies got hard. Can we talk Sunday at 6? I'd like that." Mara's chest filled with light. She replied at once, "Sunday 6, I'll be ready." Then she leaned back and let a tear of joy slide down her cheek. Sunday came with soft rain tapping on the windows. Mara arranged her room into a warm corner, a small lamp, a steaming mug of tea, and the unfinished autumn quilt draped over her lap. She kept her laptop on a low table so she could smile up at the screen. When the clock chimed 6, her heart fluttered. The screen glowed. And there was Alina, her hair loose around her face, eyes bright behind glasses. She looked tired but happy.
Oh.
Mara smiled until her cheeks ached. Double quotes, "Hello, Elle," Mara said softly. "It's so good to see you." Elena's smile was shy. It's good to see you too. She touched her scarf, the same one Mara had sent last winter. I wore this today. It reminds me of home. Mara felt warmth bloom in her chest. I hoped it would, she said. I've been working on the quilt. I wish you could touch it. Alina leaned closer to the camera. I wish I could too. They talked about small things classes, the rain, the way the wind sounded in Mara's trees. Then Alina paused and looked down. I've been stressed, she admitted. Sometimes I forget to answer. Her voice trembled. I'm sorry. Mara's heart softened. I understand. You're doing something amazing.
You're learning.
And growing, I'm proud of you. Tears filled Elena's eyes. Thank you. She looks stronger now. I miss you so much. Mara felt tears too. I miss you, she replied. But each time we talk, I remember we're still here for each other. They decided on a new plan, a shared journal online. Each Sunday, they would write an entry: poems, drawings, short stories, or even just a few lines about their week. This way, if calls had to wait, their words would still reach each other. Alina brightened at the idea. I love that, she said. We can even send sketches of our days. Mara laughed. Yes, I'll draw my garden in winter. You draw your campus under snow. They set up the journal on the screen, adding their first entries together. Mara typed, Today I sent you my heart in a box. I watched the rain and thought of your smile. I'm proud of you always. Alina read it aloud and nodded. Then she typed, I opened the box today and felt you near me. I saw the flowers and smelled the lavender. I'm grateful for your love. When they finished, the rain outside had slowed. The two sisters sat quietly, sharing the peace of connection. The distance felt smaller, not gone, but woven with letters, boxes, calls, and words that crossed seas and mountains. As they said goodnight, Mara closed her laptop and held her heart. She had not known how to reconnect in her fear, but she had found a way. Simple words, shared plans, and the courage to try again. Humanity's quiet strength shone in every act of caring, every message sent, and every dream whispered across the miles. Mara knew the road ahead would have bumps, missed calls, late parcels, busy days, but she also knew that hope lived in persistence. In every Sunday journal entry, in every small box of gifts, and in every honest word spoken, the bond between her and Alina grew stronger. And in that bond, Mara found the power to face any distance, any fear, and to keep believing that no place was too far for love and hope to travel. Mara woke early, the first light of morning slipping through her curtains like a promise. It was Sunday, again, the day she and Alina had set aside for their shared journal. Mara drank her tea slowly, savoring each warm sip as she opened the online page. She saw Elena's latest entry, a simple sketch of falling snowflakes and the words, I miss our walks in winter. Mara smiled, then felt a tug of worry. Their journal had kept them close, but Elena's entries were growing shorter. Mara understood how busy her sister was. Finals were coming, and the campus hummed with students cramming for exams. Still, the distance pressed in on Mara's heart like cold wind. She loved Alina and wanted to remind her that their bond was stronger than any schedule. She needed a new way to reach across the miles. She thought of the story Ravi had told her about community art nights in small towns. Strangers would gather to paint, to share music, to laugh together. Mara wondered if she could bring that spirit online for her sister. If Alina could not write long words, maybe she could join a simple shared activity. Mara set to work. She created an event page titled Sister Movie Night. She chose a lighthearted film they both loved, one about two friends who rebuild a broken world with laughter. Mara added a short note. Join me this Friday at 7. Let's watch together and talk about hope. Then she sent the invitation link to Alina with a quick message. No pressure. Just a quiet night, popcorn, and us. For days, Mara prepared. She tested her internet connection, set up blankets and pillows around her laptop, and made a fresh batch of her sister's favorite popcorn, drizzled with honey and sprinkled with sea salt. Each step reminded her of their movie nights at home. The way Alina would lean her head on Mara's shoulder when a heartfelt scene appeared. Friday evening. arrived with a soft rain pattering on the windows. Mara closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She clicked the event link and waited. On her screen, a small box blinked. Alina is here. Mara's heart leaped. She waved, and Alina appeared in a cozy corner of her dorm, wrapped in a bright scarf. "Hey, Mara," Alina said, her smile warm but tired. "I wasn't sure I'd make it." Mara nodded. "I know you're busy, but I wanted to share this with you." No words needed. They pressed play, and the movie began. Mara watched Elena's face light up at the familiar scenes. She felt the distance melt as laughter and tears passed between them. They paused halfway through to comment. Alina spoke about a line in the film where a character said, "Hope is a quiet song in our hearts." Mara felt tears in her own eyes. She typed into the chat, "That line makes me think of you." Elena's reply was a simple heart emoji. After the movie ended, they kept the call open. Instead of large talk, they shared small moments. The way the rain sounded on the roof, the taste of popcorn, the color of the sky outside. Each detail was a thread tying them together. When the call finally ended, Mara felt a warmth she had not known in weeks. Over the next days, Mara returned to her journal with renewed hope. She added a new section, "Moments We Share." She wrote about the movie night, listing the lines that had touched them both. Then she invited Alina to add her own moment, a simple drawing or a sentence. Even if Alina could only spare a few words, they would build their bridge one stone at a time. Alina responded with a sketch of 2 paper boats floating on a blue sea, and the words, "Together, always." Mara stared at the screen, tears rolling down her cheeks. She saved the image to her desktop, a new treasure in her collection of memories. Mara realized that hope did not have to be loud. It could be a quiet invitation, a single evening shared over a movie, a drawing sent with love. Humanity's greatest strength lay in these small acts, in the courage to reach out, and the kindness to welcome another into your world. That weekend, Mara planted wildflower seeds in her garden. She thought of Alina when she scattered each seed: marigolds, daisies, bluebells, the same flowers she had painted on the sister's box. She imagined them blooming in spring, bright reminders that life and love could blossom even after the coldest winter. As Mara watered the soil, she whispered, "We are growing together, no matter where we are." She watched the drops sink into the earth and felt a quiet joy. The distance still lay between her and Alina, but it no longer felt insurmountable. Mara stood at her window as dawn light painted the sky in soft pink and gold. She held her phone in both hands and stared at the blank screen where Elena's name should have appeared. Today was Wednesday, normally their day for a quick video chat, but there was no message. Familiar ache settled in Mara's chest. She cared about her sister more than anything, and she hated feeling so far away. Mara took a deep breath. She remembered how she had felt powerless when Alina first moved. But then she had sent letters and boxes, planned visits, and held movie nights. Each small act had kept them close. If she could find new ways to reach out, she could overcome this new silence. She just had to think of something different. She glanced around her room. On her desk lay the autumn quilt she had made, and on the wall hung a calendar marked with their shared journal dates. The notebook of memories sat on the shelf. Mara ran her finger along its edge. She realized that each step they took together, even from afar, came from her willingness to try. Humanity's strength lived in asking for connection, even when it felt hard. An idea stirred. What if they could share something each day, not just once a week, something small that required only seconds, but reminded them they were together? Mara thought of the wildflowers she had planted in her garden and the sketches Alina had drawn in her dorm. She imagined combining those into a simple, daily ritual. Morning spark messages, one line. Notes or images sent every morning. Mara opened her phone and created a new chat group called Morning Spark, with just her and Alina. She tapped Elias's picture into the group, then typed her first spark. "Good morning, El. Today I see one pale blue flower in my garden. It makes me think of your eyes." She attached a quick photo of a single bluebell reaching toward the sun. Then she sent it, heart pounding with hope. She waited. 10 minutes passed. 20. Mara's heart sank again. Maybe Alina was too busy. Maybe this would fail like the earlier video calls. But she refused to give up. She reminded herself, even if her sister did not reply, the small message still carried her love. That alone mattered. That afternoon, Mara went to work at the bakery. She shaped dough and kneaded loaves while her mind returned again and again to the Bluebell photo. Every time a customer smiled at her offerings, she thought of ways to share those smiles with Alina. She began to write little notes on the bread tags, made with hope and baked for you. She piled a few loaves aside to send with Elena's next box. When she returned home, her phone vibrated. A message from Elena's number. "Good morning, Mara. I saw your Bluebell. It was beautiful. Here's mine." Attached was a blurry selfie of Alina holding her own small flower, tiny white daisy she found near the dorm steps. Mara's chest swelled with relief. The spark had lit a flame. That night, Mara sat at her desk and typed, "Your daisy shines like hope. Thank you for sharing." Then she added a simple sketch of the moon rising over a hill, remembering how they used to watch the night sky together. She sent it, feeling the distance shrink just a little more. Over the next week, morning spark became their ritual. Morning at dawn, Mara and Alina sent each other one small image or note. A cloud in a funny shape, a taste of warm tea, a doodle of their childhood home. Each spark was tiny, but the habit built a bridge between them that no silence could break. 1 day Alina surprised Mara. Her spark read, "Today I baked something too." And she attached a photo of a small tray of cookies, just like the ones Mara had sent. They looked slightly imperfect, but full of care. Mara laughed aloud. She typed back, "Teach me how you made those," Alina wrote. Video lesson Friday. Felt a surge of joy. They would learn something together again. She imagined laughing over the screen as Flower dusted their shirts. She knew that simple shared moments watching flowers, drawing sketches. Baking cookies carried more power than grand gestures. They were proof that two hearts could stay close even when far apart. Friday evening, Mara set up her laptop for the baking lesson. She lined her counter with ingredients and found a small tray that matched Alina's. When the call connected, she saw Alina in her dorm kitchen, apron tied and glasses slightly askew. "Hi, sis," Alina said with a grin. "Hi," Mara replied. "Show me your ways." They followed the recipe together, measuring flour, cracking eggs, and stirring sugar. When Mara spilled a bit of flour on her nose, Alina giggled, and Mara laughed until her sides ached. The cookies turned out golden and soft, and the two sisters cheered as they held them up to the camera. After the lesson, they sat in silence for a moment, each holding a cookie, each tasting a piece of home. Mara realized that this was what HFY truly meant, finding the best in each other, lifting one another up with small acts of kindness and laughter. The world might be full of challenges, but caring could overcome any distance. On Sunday, Mara added a final spark to their journal. "Thank you for baking with me." "You warm my heart," Alina replied. "Thank you for always trying. You light my days." Mara closed her laptop and looked out at the night sky. The moon glowed bright, a silent promise in the darkness. She knew that tomorrow she would wake too. Another spark, a new note, a new image, a new chance to show her love. And in each moment, she would find proof that humanity's quiet strength, the will to connect, the hope to care, could bridge any miles, heal any ache, and bring distant hearts close again. Mara woke to a pale sunrise that painted her room in soft gold. Today marked 6 months since Alina had moved away. Mara held her phone and saw the familiar good morning spark waiting for her. Today, instead of a photo or a quick note, Alina had written, "I miss you in person." Mara's heart leaped. She knew the time had come to close the distance, once and for all. After breakfast, Mara sat at her desk and opened her notebook. She wrote down plans for a visit, train schedules, simple gifts to carry, the promise of fresh baked bread in Elena's hands. She let her hope guide every detail. Humanity did great things when people cared enough to act. If she could send boxes and notes, she could surely cross the miles with her own feet. Mara messaged Ravi, her friend who had helped before. "I'm coming to see Alina," she wrote. "Can you lend me your extra room for a night?" He replied with a cheerful, "Of course," and offered to drive her to the station. Mara smiled at his kindness. She packed lightly: the half-finished quilt, a jar of honey, and a small carved wooden bird they once found together. Each item carried memory and warmth. On the morning of her journey, Mara took a deep breath before leaving her front door. She pressed the carved bird into her pocket as a lucky charm. The drive to the station was quick thanks to Ravi's company and laughter. He reminded her to breathe, to enjoy every moment rather than worry. When she stepped onto the platform, the trains roared in around her like living beasts, but she felt calm. Each whistle showed that life moved forward, and so could she. The train ride was long but gentle. Mara watched fields of green, small villages nestled by rivers, and distant hills rising in mist. She thought of how many people had traveled these rails before her, families reuniting, students chasing dreams, workers finding new homes. Humanity's spirit shone in each passenger's story, and Mara felt connected to them all. She closed her eyes and let the rhythm of the tracks remind her that every mile brought her closer to Alina. When the train arrived at Elena's city, Mara stepped out into the busy station. She felt a flutter of nerves in her chest. Would Alina still want to see her? Would she have changed too much? She clutched the quilt and the wooden bird, recalling Elena's shy smile when she received small gifts. Mara squared her shoulders and looked up. There, by the exit gate, stood Ellenhurst, hair loose around her shoulders, eyes bright behind her glasses, and wearing a scarf that Mara had sent long ago. Elena's face lit up when she saw Mara. She dropped her bag and ran forward, and Mara felt tears sting her eyes. They met halfway and embraced tightly, as if holding on could keep the entire world from pulling them apart again. Passengers slowed to watch, and Mara did not care. In that moment, only two hearts existed. "I'm here," Elena whispered. "I'm really here." Mara pressed her cheek to Elena's hair. "I couldn't wait any longer." They walked out of the station hand in hand. Elena showed Mara the little cafe where she studied, the quiet park bench by the river, and the bookshop she had discovered. Each place felt new to Mara, yet familiar because Elena's stories had painted them in her mind. They ordered pastries and hot drinks, and Mara listened as Elena spoke about classes, new friends, and the challenges she had faced. Mara shared her own days at the bakery and the garden, where the wildflowers now bloomed in bright colors. As dusk fell, they sat on a low stone wall by the water. Mara spread the quilt across their laps, and they unwrapped the carved bird together. Its smooth wings glowed in the fading light. Elena traced its shape with her finger. "It's perfect," she said softly. Mara smiled. "I wanted you to have something you could hold when I wasn't here." Elena leaned her head on Mara's shoulder. "Now I have you here too." They stayed silent as the sky darkened and the first stars appeared. The city lights reflected in the river, mirroring the promise that distance could never erase. Felt the old ache melt into warmth. She realized that hope was not just a feeling. It was a choice to act, to journey, and to share moments that mattered. That night, Alina led Mara to her dorm room, where they set up a small tea kettle. They drank